Namaskar. This is Firstpost and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. This Monday began with a meme fest in India. Social media was flooded with posts about Dawood Ibrahim, an underworld don from India who's been living in Pakistan for decades. Reports say he's been poisoned and hospitalized. There is no confirmation, but the volume of commentary and conjecture betrays India's obsession with this man. Tonight we'll tell you who is Dawood Ibrahim and what we know about his reported poisoning. Meanwhile, there was an internet blackout in Pakistan. Imran Khan was holding an online rally complete with his AI avatar. In Gaza, Israeli soldiers have found the biggest Hamas tunnel, large enough for a vehicle to be driven through it. Also a report on how and why Zara is caught in the crossfire, the fashion brand. How Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has made a poll concession. How a China brokered ceasefire collapsed in Myanmar, why South Africa's former President Jacob Zuma is speaking against his own party, why Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni is going viral over her comments on Islam, how India's alcohol market is booming and driving global growth, and why there are crocodiles floating around on Australian streets. All this and more coming up. The headlines first. North Korea launches its most advanced long-range intercontinental ballistic missile. It has the potential to hit anywhere in the United States. This is the third ICBM North Korea has tested this year after successful launches in April and July. COVID-19 cases are on the rise across the globe. Singapore is reporting a sharp surge. The World Health Organization raises an alarm, calling on countries to ramp up surveillance. India too issues an advisory to states asking them to review preparedness. Pro-democracy media tycoon Jimmy Lai goes on trial in Hong Kong. Lai was the founder of Apple Daily, a newspaper that criticized Beijing. The 76-year-old has been accused of colluding with foreign forces. If found guilty, he may spend the rest of his life in prison. Abdel Fattah el-Sisi sweeps to his third term as Egypt's president. He has won almost 90% of the total vote, with more than 39 million people voting for him. He was expected to win anyway, with no serious challengers in the fray. Serbia's ruling party claims victory in snap elections. President Vučić says his party is heading to an absolute majority. Opposition claims electoral fraud and calls for a recount. Kenya and the European Union sign a historic trade deal. Certain Kenyan products will now be duty-free in the EU. Europe is Kenya's leading export destination. The deal comes as Brussels pursues stronger economic ties with Africa. Every country has an obsession, an event or individual who's become a mystery, like the JFK shooting in America or Princess Diana in Britain. India too has a similar obsession, Dawood Ibrahim. Now the first two examples are respected individuals, but Dawood Ibrahim invokes very different emotions, that of fear and hate. But why are we talking about him tonight? Because he's back in the news. New reports say Dawood Ibrahim has been poisoned and that he's currently in hospital. But like most things about him, it's unconfirmed. Pakistan's government has not said anything, neither has his family. So let's look at the available information. And I must tell you, information has been very hard to come by. Pakistan has curbed the internet since Sunday, so everything is slow. Twitter, YouTube, all of it. Nonetheless, let's look at what we know, what we have as of now. On Sunday evening, we started hearing the first reports, a lot of chatter about Dawood Ibrahim. Later that day, a Pakistani journalist uploaded a video. She compiled all the information. Apparently, Dawood Ibrahim is at a hospital in Karachi. He's in fact booked out an entire floor. Some reports also say that he's been hospitalized since Saturday. As for who poisoned him, we don't know. And chances are we never will. You see, Pakistan does not admit that Dawood is living in their country. They deny it. But New Delhi says that he lives in Karachi, and that too in a rather posh area. We keep hearing about the same address, the White House in Karachi's Clifton. So don't expect any official reaction from Islamabad on this. They can neither confirm nor deny these reports, because if they do, they will be admitting to his presence. But let's look at the larger story here. When did Dawood Ibrahim flee to Pakistan? What are the cases against him, and why hasn't India been able to get him back? Dawood Ibrahim hails from Mumbai's Dongri. His father was a police head constable. Talk about irony. His criminal career began in the 1970s, at first with petty crimes like fraud and robbery, but soon Dawood joined the big league. He started gold smuggling, extortion and drug trafficking. By the 1980s, he set up his own crime syndicate, the D Company. But in 1986, he fled to Dubai. Dawood was charged by the Mumbai police. He was wanted in the murder of a rival mafia hitman. That's how Dawood left India. But his operations did not end. From Dubai, he kept running the D Company, and he had contacts everywhere, in cricket, in politics, and especially in Bollywood. At one point, Dawood was financing multiple Hindi movies. Top stars would be his guests in Dubai. So why did he resettle in Pakistan? Because in 1993, Dawood crossed another red line. He masterminded the Mumbai serial blasts. More than 250 people lost their lives, so now the game was up. The FBI and the Interpol cracked down. They put Dawood on their most wanted lists. So he fled again, this time from Dubai to Pakistan. And rumor is that he agreed to bail out Pakistan's central bank, also promised to arm Pakistani terror groups. In exchange, Islamabad protected him. I'm sure you've heard of golden visas and citizenships. Well, this was the Pakistani version of it. You don't have to buy properties, you just have to buy guns for terrorists. So since 1993, Dawood has lived in Karachi. Of course, Pakistan does not admit this, but they did come close to it in 2020. That's when the FATF was hot on Islamabad's trail. The FATF is a Financial Action Task Force. It is a terror financing watchdog. Pakistan was placed on their grey list. And to escape that, Islamabad had to crack down on terror. They published details of wanted terrorists in Pakistan. This list had 88 names, and among them was Dawood Ibrahim. His address was listed as Karachi. But days later, Islamabad made a U-turn and they said Dawood was not in Pakistan. So what's the status today? Well, Dawood is still the most wanted criminal in India. The NIA has a bounty on him. That's the National Investigation Agency, NIA. The bounty is worth around 25 lakh rupees. The US too has designated him as a global terrorist. So has the Interpol, and the Interpol bounty is around $25 million. Yet there's been no progress. Until now, Dawood's been living a luxurious life. His family says he has a second wife. His daughter is married to the son of Javed Miandad. He's one of Pakistan's most famous cricketers. So not exactly low-key. But no camera has seen him, not in the last few decades. You may have seen these pictures of Dawood on the internet or on television, but chances are he looks very different now. The man is 67 years old. Plus, reports say he's changed his appearance. So forget getting him back. We don't even know what Dawood Ibrahim looks like. Imagine that. A man who tore India's financial capital apart. A man who killed 250 innocent Indians. A man whose armed terror groups like Al-Qaeda, New Delhi could not nab him. And it's not like the man has changed his ways. Dawood was linked to the 2008 Mumbai attacks as well. He was also involved in the 2010 Pune blast. Even in the 2013 IPL fixing scandal. So India cannot forget Dawood Ibrahim so easily. And even if you want to, Bollywood won't let you. Dozens of movies and shows have featured his life. Some of them have borderline glorified him. So what is it that makes Dawood Ibrahim an obsession in India? A, he's never been caught, and that adds to the mystery around his life. Like I said, no one knows what he even looks like. And B, the larger-than-life image. I'm talking about his Bollywood connections, his ties to Indian cricket, even to politicians. We know actors and politicians as powerful people, powerful and unreachable, but not for Dawood Ibrahim. He made them do whatever he wanted. He seemed one step above them, hence the obsession. As for his poisoning saga, we'll have to wait it out. This is not Dawood's first sickness or death. Every now and then, these reports keep popping up, like the time he was diagnosed with AIDS or with the Wuhan virus. Those turned out to be false rumors. Let's see if this one is any different. And I mentioned the internet curbs in Pakistan. That's our next story. The restrictions began late on Sunday. Their target was not Dawood Ibrahim, though. It was Imran Khan. He's in jail, but his AI double is on the job. That's right. On Sunday, Imran Khan's party held an online rally. Think of it as a live streaming event. Party supporters could see it on YouTube or social media. Some 4.5 million people joined in. The whole thing lasted around 4 hours and 50 minutes. You had party leaders making online statements, discussions between politicians, also messages from supporters. But all of it was just building up to the surprise main event, a speech by Imran Khan. Of course, he could not join from jail. Instead, he is said to have sent notes to party workers. And with those notes, Imran Khan's statement was generated using artificial intelligence. Take a look at this.
आप सब शायद सोच रहे होंगे कि जेल में मेरा क्या हाल है। सबसे पहले मैं ये वाज़ेह करना चाहता हूँ कि पाकिस्तान की हकीकी आज़ादी की खातिर जेल में रहना मेरे लिए इबादत के मुतरादिफ है। मैं अपने मुल्क और अपने लोगों के लिए अपनी जान कुर्बान करने को तैयार हूँ। रियासती इदारों की जानिब से एक भगोड़ा के लिए समझौता किया जा रहा है। जमहूरी इदारे उस लाडले के लिए ताकतवर लोग तबाह कर देते हैं, लेकिन इस लाडले को मालूम होना चाहिए कि वे 8 फरवरी को इलेक्शन हार जाएगा, क्योंकि अवाम की ताकत को कोई नहीं हरा सकता।
We've seen similar cases before, like in Russia last week. President Vladimir Putin had an interaction with his AI double. But this case stands out for one reason. It wasn't a joke, it wasn't made for fun. It was made to sidestep government authorities. You see, Imran Khan is banned from Pakistani airways. You cannot show him on TV. He faces over 150 cases in the country. They range from terrorism to fraud. So it's impossible to hear Imran Khan live, which is why his party chose the AI option, the artificial intelligence option. It's on brand for them. Imran Khan's party is called the PTI, the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf. In the 2018 election, they harnessed social media well. They used YouTube and mobile apps to reach young Pakistanis. So AI was the natural next step. Chances are this will become a trend in the future. After all, jail politicians are a feature in most countries, even jailed activists. AI could bring them to live events or rallies. It can be a morale booster. But we'll discuss AI sometime else. Tonight, let's look at Pakistani politics. We're just weeks away from the general election in February. It is no secret who the army is backing: former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif. And when the army backs you in Pakistan, it's usually a done deal. It's always been like that in Pakistan. But could this election be different? I ask because the army seems worried this time. Just look at their reaction to this online rally. It wasn't even a physical show of force. It was mostly party workers and leaders on a Zoom call. But the army wasn't having it. They slowed down the internet for 2 whole days. They also stopped access to social media platforms like Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. What does that tell you? That the army is not taking any chances. And despite that, 4.5 million people joined the online rally, which raises the question, just how popular is Imran Khan? We have a poll that was conducted in June this year, June 2023. This was right after his first arrest the month before. He was arrested in the month of May. Imran Khan had an approval rating of 60% then. He led his rivals by more than 24 points. Same with his party. The PTI had a likability of 59%. It was twice that of Nawaz Sharif's party, the PMLN. Plus, the current situation is really bad. Inflation in Pakistan is at more than 43%, the highest level in 6 months. And yes, Imran Khan's government was also responsible for this mess, but voters, you see, have short memories. So most of the criticism is against the Sharifs. Does that mean Imran Khan can pull off a victory? Well, he personally cannot. He's been banned from contesting elections. Just last week, he was indicted again, this time for leaking state secrets. So Imran Khan is not walking out anytime soon, not even if the jail collapses. But his supporters could spring a surprise. We saw evidence of that in May this year. Tens of thousands of people protested Imran Khan's arrest. They even attacked the army headquarters. So don't underestimate the Imran Khan voter. Having said that, one problem still remains. Will the elections be free and fair? In Pakistan, they never are. The army inevitably does something shady, but this time the stakes are higher. Western countries are watching more closely. Agencies like the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, are watching. And rigged elections will not impress them. It could derail Pakistan's bailout packages. So what does the army do? Does it risk a rigged election and backlash? Does it bet on the Sharifs pulling off a victory? Or does it delay the election again? There are no good options here. So I guess it's familiar territory for the Pakistani army. It's day 73 of the war in Gaza. The fighting continues. The death toll is rising. More than 1.9 million people have been displaced. And the war seems to have entered a dangerous stage. A stage where gains are hard to come by, but losses are significant. Let's start with the gains. On Sunday, Israel discovered a Hamas tunnel, the largest they have found so far. It was around 4 kilometers long and so wide that even vehicles could drive through it. Israeli forces have released a video. It almost looks like a honeycomb of passageways. The tunnel has ventilation, electricity, sewage facilities, and even communication networks. Israel calls it a brainchild of Hamas chief Yahya Sinwar.
We are going to enter to the biggest tunnel we found in Gaza, the biggest secret of Sinwar, his project, his subterranean tunnel project. We're going to enter. It was a secret that we have revealed that was meant to target the crossing tunnel, the subterranean tunnel constructed by Muhammad Sinwar. This is the Sinwar project tunnel that was meant to do a terror attack.
Hamas is said to have spent millions of dollars on this tunnel. The network is massive. And look at the location. The entrance is barely 400 meters from the Eretz crossing. That's a border crossing between Gaza and Israel. The crossing that Gazans use to go to work every day. Hamas built a tunnel close to it, just minutes away from Israel. And this is just one tunnel. They may have many more. They have many more, in fact, apparently spread over hundreds of kilometers. These tunnels give Hamas a tactical advantage. They help them in urban warfare and they make the fight more difficult for Israel. Look at what happened on Friday. There was a clash in Gaza City. Israel was fighting Hamas and facing stiff resistance. Suddenly, 3 men appeared from a building, 3 shirtless men. One of them carried a white cloth. Israeli soldiers thought they were Hamas terrorists, so they opened fire at them. 2 of them died on the spot. The third died later. Turns out all 3 were Israeli hostages.
3 people came out. They took into account that they were taking a risk by approaching the IDF troops. To minimize the risk, they really thought. They took off their shirts so that no one would think they have an explosive device and held a white cloth on a pole to identify themselves. They came speaking Hebrew, calling for help.
These killings have led to an uproar across Israel. Thousands of people are on the streets calling for a ceasefire, and so is the United Nations. It has warned of a humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza. Almost all the people have been displaced there. They have no access to food or electricity, and aid trucks are being looted. Let me show you a video. You can see aid trucks pulling in, and as soon as they do, hundreds of Palestinians take them over. They climb the trucks, looting food and water and running away with whatever they can carry. Shows you how desperate the situation is. There's absolute chaos. Palestinians are starving, which brings us to the question, where does this end? What is Israel's endgame? It's the question that Lloyd Austin will be asking today. He is the US Defense Secretary, their defense minister, and he is in Israel as we speak. He has 2 things on his agenda: discussing de-escalation of the war and finding ways to secure the Red Sea, because that's where this conflict is spreading, to the Red Sea, one of the most important trade routes for oil and fuel shipments. It is coming under attack. The Houthis of Yemen are attacking ships in the Red Sea.
The Yemeni armed forces will not hesitate to target any ship that violates what was stated in the previous statements. The Yemeni armed forces confirm that they continue to prevent all ships of all nationalities heading to Israeli ports from navigating in the Arab and Red Seas until they bring in the food and medicine that our steadfast brothers in the Gaza Strip need. God is the witness for my words.
Shipping companies are alarmed. Many have stopped using this route. The top 5 shipping firms in the world are steering clear of the Red Sea. British energy giant BP has joined this list. It has suspended the transits through the Red Sea because it's too risky and too expensive. Insurance is at a record high now, so they're exploring alternatives. 55 ships have already been redirected. They will go around the Cape of Good Hope. It's a much longer journey, almost 2 weeks longer. It will also cost more, but it's less risky. And who will bear the extra cost for this longer journey? You and I, the consumers. So brace for prices to go up. Meanwhile, efforts are on to secure the Red Sea. On Saturday, the US shot down 14 Houthi drones here. Now it wants to launch a maritime protection force. They're pushing other players to join. The Arab states seem to be on board. Washington even wants China to join. As expected, Iran does not like any of this. It says such an alliance will be a red line, and if the US launches it, Iran will resist. So while the fighting continues in Gaza, the high seas are also on the boil. And not just the high seas, the war has also reached the stores of Zara, the fashion giant. It is facing a boycott. It started with an ad campaign. It showed a model with mannequins covered in white plastic. The images looked eerily similar to those emerging from Gaza, and soon Zara swung into damage control. It said the campaign was conceived in July. It even pulled the new ads. But the apology has fallen on deaf ears. Protesters have taken over Zara stores globally. Some were forced to shut down. Our next report tells you about the latest brand caught in the Israel-Hamas crossfire.
The world of fashion operates on desire. If you need new clothes and new trends, a brand must deliver immediately. It's what we call fast fashion, and one of its pioneers is Spanish fashion giant Zara. But what happens when customers want more than just trends? What happens when they want accountability? It's a question that Zara is facing today. Its own ad campaign has triggered a call for boycott. The campaign was called The Jacket. It showed mannequins with missing limbs and statues wrapped in white. In one of the photos, a model is pictured carrying a mannequin wrapped in white plastic. In another photo, a mannequin is without arms. The background shows cracked stones and damaged statues. Zara may not have given it much thought, but the similarity was almost uncanny. It looked like the pictures emerging out of Gaza. So the ad campaign was met with a flood of angry comments. Palestinians called for a boycott, and hashtag boycott Zara started trending. Then came the protests. In Canada, protests were reported at multiple Zara stores, including 2 in Ontario. There were demonstrations in Toronto and Ottawa too. Pro-Palestinian protesters, some waving Palestinian flags, gathered outside a Zara store in a mall, chanting, "We charge you with genocide."
We charge you with genocide. We charge you with genocide.
In Glasgow, protests forced a Zara store to close. Then there were protests in Germany, Australia, South Africa, Tunisia, and Turkey.
Worthless, valueless Zara. We came to present you with new ideas for the disgusting and ignoble PR campaign that you are running, using images representative of the bodies of innocent people that are being torn to bits under bombs wrapped in shrouds and cities that have been turned into rubble.
Zara has since gone into damage control mode. Its first response was to ignore the boycott calls. But when they got too loud, Zara went into defensive mode. It said this campaign was conceived in July, well before the Israel-Hamas war began. And it was shot in September, so there was no way it was inspired by the war which began in October. But the boycott calls continued. So Zara has junked the ad campaign and issued an apology. At the same time, they say it's only a misunderstanding. And this is not new for Zara. In 2014, it released a t-shirt with the slogan, "White is the new black." It was slammed as racist. Then they were slammed for a unisex line of clothing. In 2022, Zara stores in Israel held a campaign for far-right minister Ben-Gvir. That too led to a boycott call. But this time the controversy shows no sign of blowing over. As the fighting continues in Gaza, more and more international brands are facing scrutiny and boycott calls. First there was McDonald's, then Starbucks, and now it's Zara. It may attempt a delicate balancing act, but its defense looks as tattered as a last season trend. This is a fast fashion giant entangled in a slow-burning geopolitical crisis.
It's election season in Bangladesh. Voting is on the 7th of January, so just 19 days away. But somehow the mood doesn't reflect that. Usually we see rallies and campaign events. This time there are protests. Maybe because the results are a given. Bangladesh's main opposition parties are boycotting the vote. They won't participate. In their absence, the results are a foregone conclusion, another term for Sheikh Hasina. Now obviously, that's not a good look. You want opposition parties to take part, you want the field to be crowded, only then will the elections appear legitimate. So what's the Prime Minister doing? Offering some concessions. In the last few days, she's been holding talks with one party, the Jatiya Party or Japa. They're the biggest opposition party in parliament right now. Until now, they too were boycotting the vote, but not anymore. The Jatiya Party says they will contest the elections. Why? Because Sheikh Hasina has promised them an easy fight. Her party, the Awami League, has decided not to contest in 26 out of 300 seats. So no fear of rigging. No fear of a tough fight. It's a great chance for the opposition to make some gains, and the Jatiya Party has agreed. But will that legitimize the elections? It's a tough ask. You see, 14 parties are boycotting the vote. That includes the main opposition party, the BNP, or the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, BNP. Thousands of their supporters have been holding protests. Many top leaders have been arrested. Even today, the BNP Secretary General was arrested in Dhaka. So was a standing committee member. Plus tomorrow they're launching a strike, a nationwide shutdown to pressure Sheikh Hasina. And what do they want? They want her resignation. The opposition says Sheikh Hasina will rig the election, so they say step aside. Let a caretaker government oversee the polls. But the Prime Minister has refused, and technically she can refuse because Bangladesh has abolished the caretaker system. Some of these caretakers have overstayed their welcome, so legally she does not have to resign. Of course, the flip side is this. An election without the opposition, that's what she gets. It could lead to two problems. Number one, criticism from Western countries. Both the US and Europe are calling for free and fair elections. In fact, Washington has been openly meddling in Bangladesh. Now, Dhaka can ignore this criticism. That's what Russia and China are asking it to do, ignore them. But here's the problem. The US and Europe are major markets. Most of Bangladesh's garments are exported there. What if criticism turns into sanctions or import curbs? That's one worry. And number two, more domestic turmoil. The BNP has not been in power since 2006. That's almost 17 years. They boycotted the 2014 election, lost the 2018 one in a landslide, and are now boycotting again. It's a risky strategy. You see, the BNP always had an Islamist streak. They had close ties to the hardline Jamaat. And now those ties are deepening. The Jamaatis are openly joining the BNP protests, destroying public property, burning vehicles and buses, which makes you wonder, is the BNP going even more hardline? And if so, it's a worry for Sheikh Hasina. And the Prime Minister realizes this. She took part in a discussion this weekend to celebrate Victory Day. It marks Pakistan's surrender in the 1971 war. And in that discussion, she had a message for the opposition. Listen to what she said. I'm quoting, "It is not possible to win the hearts of people through arson, terrorism and killing. They should know this and they should act accordingly." So Sheikh Hasina faces two kinds of pressure, both internal and external. She's tried to limit the damage by offering some concessions, but it could be too little too late, because the opposition has already chosen the path of brinkmanship and violence. And now let's turn to another one of India's neighbours, Myanmar. It is in the grip of a civil war-like situation. Rebel groups in the country have joined hands for a multi-pronged attack to take on the military junta. The junta took power in 2021. It ousted the democratically elected government in a coup. But in late October, the rebels began their offensive. And they've been making gains since. The junta is on the back foot, losing town after town. The latest loss was the city of Namsan in the Shan state. It fell on Friday, the day after China announced a ceasefire. Our next report brings you the latest.
Myanmar is in turmoil. Multiple armed ethnic groups in the nation have taken up arms against the junta. Three groups began the offensive on the 27th of October. They call themselves the Three Brotherhood Alliance. They began their offensive in Myanmar's northeastern state of Shan, and the resistance has spread like wildfire. Other rebel groups from around the country have joined the fight. All of them are united in their desire to overthrow Myanmar's military junta.
We have the lives of civilians. The main objective is to take down the military dictatorship, which is what Myanmar people always want.
That was a spokesperson for one of the three rebel groups that began this round of fighting. The announcement came after they took over the town of Namsan. It's a provincial capital in the Shan state. One of the many major towns the rebels have captured in the last month and a half. The junta has been losing one base after another. Their troops have been fleeing or surrendering before the advancing rebel forces. The rebels say that even Myanmar's soldiers don't want to fight for the junta.
When we captured military positions, we found that military soldiers had many weapons and ammunition left, but they had abandoned their positions. Military soldiers could fight with these weapons if they wanted, but they decided to run away. It shows that military soldiers don't want to fight under the military dictatorship anymore.
This may just be a way to demoralize the junta's troops. But if it's true, then the question arises. Who wants to keep Myanmar's military junta in power? The answer is obvious.
China is happy to see the parties to the conflict in the northern Myanmar hold peace talks and achieve positive results. We are ready to continue to provide support and facilitation to this end.
China has been supporting the junta for years. It also has good ties with some of the ethnic armed groups in Myanmar. Beijing has been advancing its interests by playing all sides in this conflict. So it likely doesn't want the status quo to change, which is why China has been acting as a mediator, pushing for a ceasefire in Myanmar. It even announced a truce last Thursday. But it looks like Beijing spoke too soon, because the very next day the rebels took over Namsan. There are reports of fighting in other regions as well, like the Rakhine state in the west. Rebels say they've also taken over a junta base in the regional capital Sitwe. They are also accusing the junta of resorting to indiscriminate bombardment. They say that the military is dropping bombs in civilian areas out of desperation. The fighting in Myanmar has displaced over 300,000 people. Thousands have fled the country and entered neighboring nations like India. The Indian border states of Mizoram and Manipur have seen a large influx lately. Reports say over 6,000 refugees have now crossed into Manipur. The chief minister of the state has expressed concern. He says India cannot take the developments in Myanmar lightly. He says the refugees must be allowed in on humanitarian grounds. but provisions need to be made so that they can return once the fighting is over. However, for that, the fighting needs to stop, and there are no signs of that happening anytime soon.
Now let's talk about a different sort of civil war, a political civil war. It has broken out in South Africa. It features former President Jacob Zuma. He was at a political event on Saturday. That's where he fired the first salvo. The target was this man, Cyril Ramaphosa, the current president of South Africa, Zuma's successor and foe. Jacob Zuma said, and I quote, "It would be a betrayal to campaign for Ramaphosa's party." That's ANC, or the African National Congress, also the party of Nelson Mandela. ANC first came to power in 1994 after South Africa won freedom from the apartheid rule. And the same party has won every election since. Every election since 1994, the ANC has come out on top. Jacob Zuma was also an ANC leader. He belongs to the same party. So is Ramaphosa. But now Zuma is rebelling. He says he will vote for a different party.
2024, I will vote for the Umkhonto weSizwe MK party. I call on all South Africans to join me in taking the important step and to vote for the MK party.
Zuma is 81 years old, a politician who rose during South Africa's struggle against apartheid. As a young man, he spent a decade in jail in the infamous Robben Island. He fought along with Nelson Mandela and other freedom fighters. So why is Zuma abandoning his party now? The party he fought so hard for? Well, as cliched as it sounds, Zuma says it is to save the ANC from itself.
I will be a member of the ANC until I die. But if the ANC goes out of the way, I will take time to correct it. And this is to rescue the ANC, what I'm doing.
Is that the only reason, though? Or is Zuma trying to pile pressure on the ANC to extract revenge from President Ramaphosa? You see, the two men share a long history. The story goes back to 1991. That's when Ramaphosa and Zuma first went head-to-head. Both stood for the post of ANC Secretary General. Ramaphosa won and Zuma had to settle for the post of Deputy Secretary General. This was in 1991. And since then, Zuma took the lead politically. He rose through the ranks. In 2009, he also became President of South Africa. Zuma ruled the country for almost 9 years. In 2018, he was forced to step down. There were allegations of corruption. So his rival within the party, Ramaphosa, took over. Now, Zuma is under legal scrutiny, although he's no stranger to controversy. He's been linked to corruption scandals for years, including the country's most famous or infamous scandal, the 1999 South African arms deal. Jacob Zuma is said to have benefited from it, with inflated prices and opaque procurements. You know, the typical defense scandal. He was embroiled in one. Zuma has been indicted in this case multiple times, but the proceedings have been dropped or delayed for various reasons. Technically, he's still being questioned. So 24 years after the arms deal, he's not been convicted. He says the case is politically motivated and that these are ploys by his enemies like Ramaphosa to keep him out of politics. But the arms deal is not the only stain on Zuma's record. There are also his infamous ties with the Gupta brothers.
There were lots of things that struck me, but one of the things that concerned me very much was how the former president of the Republic, Mr. Jacob Zuma, was prepared to do certain things, wrong things, at the instance of or for the Guptas.
He's talking about the Gupta family of industrialists. They went to South Africa in 1993 and they were always close to Jacob Zuma, so much so that they're accused of undue influence in South Africa. Critics say the Guptas effectively captured the state and this is what precipitated Zuma's downfall. Now, he says he will not support his party. Ramaphosa has a tough election ahead. The opposition parties have forged a coalition, so the ANC may actually have a fight on its hands this time. But is Jacob Zuma in a position to influence voters? Apparently he is. The former president is still popular. He can still influence a sizable number of votes, maybe even enough to tip the election away from the ANC. The question is, can Ramaphosa prevent that? Or will Zuma have the last laugh? The election is still a few months away, and it promises to be an interesting one. Today is International Migrants Day. In 1990, the United Nations decided to honor migrants. Every 18th of December, a UN-related agency oversees the celebrations, but there is not really very much to celebrate. Everywhere you look, migrants are seen as a problem, not a cause for celebration. Tonight, we'll focus on Europe. Most European countries profess liberal democratic values and human rights, but in practice, they're scrambling in the opposite direction, trying to get rid of immigrants. The UK has its controversial Rwanda deportation plan. It has inspired Germany to do the same. Meanwhile, Italy has struck a deal with Albania to outsource immigrants. And their Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, is going viral. An old video of hers where she says Islam is not compatible with Europe. Here's a report.
We have seen this year, in terms of irregular migration, is record historic levels being superseded. For instance, in the Americas, 500,000 people have crossed through the Darien Gap in Colombia. We've seen highest number of deaths, for example, and missing migrants in the Mediterranean.
That bleak assessment was delivered by an official from the International Organization for Migration, the UN-related agency in charge of celebrating International Migrants' Day. That's today. December 18th is supposed to be a day to celebrate the contribution of migrants to society. But increasingly, we hear alarm bells ringing when it comes to migration, specifically unregulated or illegal migration.
This year, already more than 36,000 irregular arrivals by sea to the Canary Islands. Out of those, more than 4,000, maybe 4,500 unaccompanied minors. This is a true challenge for these beautiful islands to deal with such a huge arrival that we have seen this year.
That's a sobering example of the problem that Europe is facing. Every year, hundreds of thousands try and migrate to Europe. Some do this to escape persecution back home. Others do it to try and make a better life for themselves. Thousands take to the Mediterranean Sea on ramshackle boats. Many lose their lives in the process. Whatever their reason, the migrants are entering Europe in an unregulated manner, and the continent is overwhelmed. UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak believes there's something even more dangerous afoot.
Criminal gangs will find ever cheaper ways to ply their evil trade. They will exploit our humanity, and they think nothing of putting people's lives at risk when they put them in these boats at sea. And our enemies will also see that we are unable to deal with this, and then they will so increasingly use migration as a weapon, deliberately driving people to our shores to try to destabilize our societies.
That's a very alarming prediction, the weaponization of migrants. So, is Europe doing anything to prevent this? Some countries are trying to work out novel solutions. Sunak and his government want to deport migrants to Rwanda. It's a nation in Africa. The UK Parliament recently approved a bill that might put this plan in motion. It's not a done deal yet, but that's Sunak's plan of action. And this seems to have inspired a German political party as well. A leader from Germany's Christian Democrats party said that they might opt for this third country solution as well. This party is in the opposition in Germany. It could just be an election pitch, because it's easier said than done. There are UN refugee and human rights conventions which can stop this sort of plan. So for now, it's all theoretical. Italy is also trying something similar. It wants to send migrants to Albania. Albania was to host a few thousand migrants while their asylum applications got processed. But a few days ago, an Albanian court blocked the scheme. Over the weekend, the British and Albanian Prime Ministers went to Italy at the invitation of Italian PM Giorgia Meloni. They were going to sit down and discuss the migration issue, try and find a way forward. But that event was partly overshadowed by a different issue. An old video of Meloni resurfaced and went viral. In it, she's heard saying that Islam and Europe have a compatibility problem. Later, she says that she's talking about a certain interpretation of Islam, but her words are clearly directed at the so-called other, the outsider, the migrant. And as things stand, Europe still has no solution to the migrant crisis. Whatever the religion or country of origin, Europe says it does not want any more migrants.
So we expect to see a continued upward trend in regular migration because of labor shortages in the so-called global north and youthful populations in the global south.
If Europe continues to grey, it will keep getting migrants. There will be a shortage of workers. People will migrate to fill those labor shortages. It's simple demand and supply. Changing that demographic shortfall is perhaps the only long-term solution to Europe's immigration problem. Till they address that, they will not be able to stop the boats. And all the Rwanda or Albania plans won't amount to much more than failed campaign promises.
Now let's turn our attention to India. It is the world's 5th largest economy. You already know that. But did you know that India is also the world's 5th biggest alcohol market, worth about $52 billion? Indians are raising their glasses and the world is here for it. Tonight we'll tell you how. Now, India has a long history with alcohol. It has been consumed for centuries in this country. References to alcohol date back to 200 BC. But over time, India has also come into its own as a maker, and not just for consumption at home, but also for the world. Let me give you an example. Only a tiny proportion of Indians drink Scotch. Despite this, India is one of the biggest exporters of Scotch. Last year, India drove the global growth in the global liquor market. It accounted for a third of the growth, and experts say this is not a sudden boom and it is going to last. The global market for alcohol is expected to grow by 40% till 2030. Emerging markets like Asia and Africa will be the major contributors, and among them, India will lead the charge. It is already one of the fastest growing markets for alcohol. It is growing at 6.8% annually, and it's expected to reach $64 billion over the next 5 years. This overall increase is supported by growth in varied categories. Last year, the market for Scotch, for instance, grew by 32%, gin by 45%, agave by 70%, and single malt whiskey by a stunning 144%. And this is not surprising. Single malts are reshaping India's alcohol market. India is a whiskey drinking nation, but now it is leading in production too. Indian-born whiskies are competing with global brands for shelf space. They're winning global awards, making a buzz worldwide, so much so that last year a multinational liquor behemoth launched its own Indian single malt. Now compare this with the global picture. The world over, some of the most developed markets are showing a decline in production. That's because they also have a declining consumption pattern. Studies say each generation is drinking lesser than the previous one. There are health concerns and shifting lifestyles. Also, when your population is shrinking and you have fewer younger people, it becomes a problem for all kinds of market, including alcohol. We saw this in America, where Gen Z is drinking 20% less per capita than millennials. And this trend is not limited to the US. The German market is drying off too. And this is a country that was known for its beer consumption. Some nations have it even worse. For instance, Japan is in crisis mode. Its alcohol market has shrunk dramatically, so much so that last year their government launched a campaign. It was called the Sake Viva. Sake is a Japanese rice wine, and Japan wants its citizens to drink and promote it. So far, India does not face this problem. Young Indians are driving the sales, backed by rising incomes and post-pandemic growth. They're trying new products, opting for high-quality drinks, chasing the quiet luxury of craft liquor, and indirectly promoting the birth of new homegrown brands. Indian startups in this space are showing massive growth. This ecosystem is worth over $1.2 billion. And the government is supporting this growth with new policies aimed to improve infrastructure for the food processing sector, which also includes the alcohol industry. So several factors are driving this boom. But the result is one. India is now a key player in the global alcoholic beverage industry. It has miles to go, but clearly the spirits are already high. Now let's turn our attention to Australia. Last week it was hit by a cyclone and now it is suffering record floods, power outages and food and water shortages. Roads and railways are inundated. One of their biggest airports is completely underwater. Thousands of people have been affected in northeastern Australia. Entire cities have been cut off. And as if all of this was not enough, now crocodiles are swimming through the streets. Our next report tells you more.
No, your eyes are not deceiving you. That is, in fact, a crocodile lurking in the waters. It's shocking even for Australia, where these visuals are coming from. But today, this has been a relatively common occurrence in the land down under. Crocs were found swimming in the streets thanks to the floods. Last week, Cyclone Jasper wreaked havoc in Australia, and now this is what its northeastern region looks like. It's the worst hit. Some areas have received a year's worth of rainfall within days, leading to record-breaking floods.
Overnight, we have seen record-breaking rain across far north Queensland, including flash flooding. Far north Queenslanders know how to deal with natural disasters, but this one is, this level of rainfall is next level.
They have cut off entire towns, affecting over 14,000 households, killing at least 2 residents, leaving thousands without access to power, food and drinking water. Roads and railways are completely inundated. Planes are submerged at a major airport.
I could not tell you I've seen it this bad before here. No, I don't think so.
It's a little bit crazy, like we didn't expect something like this. I never see flooding like this before and it's the first time, so it's a little bit impressive for me. And yeah, it's getting like, real, more or less.
So far, about 300 people have been evacuated. The long list includes this crocodile as well. He was pulled out of the floodwaters, but as for thousands of others, it will be harder than expected. The heavy rain has thwarted evacuation attempts, especially for people in the low-lying communities, many of whom are clinging to roofs to save their lives.
Obviously, some of those challenges around water with people on roofs, people in small cut-off communities, the roads that are cut, and our ability to access those presents a real danger and a real challenge, not only to us as responders trying to get there, but the people themselves, importantly, in those situations.
Now the government has called on the military to rescue desperate communities. Boats and military helicopters have been deployed.
We deployed literally every boat we could get our hands on in Cairns to evacuate those who couldn't safely evacuate themselves, and more help is on the way.
The estimated toll of the disaster is $670 million. Especially as Australia has been hit over and over in recent years, flooding has become more frequent. Just this year, the nation was plagued by a series of disasters, including severe drought, bushfire, record floods, and mass bleaching events. According to experts, the worst of the current floods is not here yet. While the rain is expected to ease tomorrow onwards, the rivers may start rising. As they swell further, the disaster will exacerbate, and the government knows evacuation must pick up pace. For Australia, this is a race against time.
And now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. In Thailand, farmers turned rice paddies into whimsical cat art. In Venice, Santas did sleighs for gondolas at the traditional regatta race. And 5 million coloured lights bring Christmas cheer to a Croatian town. Finally, we're taking you back in history. On this day in 1865, America formally outlawed the practice of slavery. The move followed a years-long civil war in the country. It took 246 years for the US to ban this inhumane practice. We're leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.